people, what up though? So we're back with episode 2, All Black Men Need Therapy. And what we wanted to do before we began going into the topic of the episode today, which is PTSD, we want to talk about episode 1.
Yeah, and it's so funny, man. This is still so, like, weird to me. Because we talking about episode 1, like, we've been recording forever. But, it's, we went back and forth, people. And Chief made a good point. He was like, man, we should share the dialogue that we had after recording episode 1. And I'm like, for what? I'm like, because, well, one, just so y'all know, he wanted to re-record it. I'm not here for that.
I wanted to re-record it, y'all. I wanted to give y'all the best product we can give y'all. But we thought it'd be good for y'all to grow with us as we move through this podcast and forum. We knew nothing about it going into it. We still don't know very much about it. But we were like, well, hey, we're going to get some feedback from our immediates, from our close friends, and see what they thought about it. We took the feedback they gave us. We're going to hopefully apply that into this episode and give you something a little bit different. We had some technical difficulties where we recorded with the microphones and we saved it and it didn't save. So we had to use the audio from the video camera, which thankfully we did that. So this one might sound a little bit better in terms of, you know, when you hear it now versus the first one, because we have the microphone set up and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and, you know, look, guys, it ain't how you start, it's how you finish, right? So we started off there, and it was what it was. We feel like we're gonna make some tweaks, but at the end of the day, like we said as a disclaimer in the first episode, like we gonna be real, authentic, and vulnerable, right? So some of the things that come out will, you know, may not sit well with some people, but these are things that we are unpacking, right, for all of you guys to see, and hopefully this will allow you to unpack some of your challenges or potential traumas that you've experienced that you may not even been aware that you were experiencing. So
we went back and forth about this, but we're doing it just because, again, you're going to grow with us in this process. We're accepting your feedback, and I'm talking. We're accepting your feedback, and so if you have anything for us, allblackmennneedtherapy@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about the first episode. What you think about the second episode? People said we didn't introduce ourselves well enough. But I'm like, what more do you need to know? Like, we, us, and
yeah, but you know, there's some validity to that, right? Like, we've known each other for 20 plus years. I've always been the superior athlete.
That's so okay. So, candidly speaking, I'll give him athletically. He might be a little bit more, whatever you want to label it. However, anytime we've competed, I have been victorious. From back in the day in Mr. Johnson's driveway when we was moving outside. I remember. Like 14. I've always won. So, y'all call it what you want.
Y'all heard the saying, you play down to your competition. Like,
well, you should have played up because you got scraped.
That's kind of what was happening in those times. But no, yeah, we've been friends forever. We're family, right? Like, he comes to my family events. They know him. He walks in my house, opens the fridge, don't have to knock. Well, now we do because my wife is breastfeeding and stuff, so that's a little weird. But anyway, outside of that, we just people, man, and we've had our lives have been parallel in a lot of ways, and we just have an incredible bond, man, and we just thought it was time to start discussing some of these things that we don't even talk about to ourselves, right? Like, and it just happened. We stumbled across a conversation, and I made the statement that all black men need therapy, and he was like, but why? Like, I'm not going to therapy, basically. And then we got to talking, and then he was like, man, people need to hear this. So the title came from a stance that I made a while ago, and the podcast came from him, right? So he was the driving force behind the podcast. Another thing you'll understand about the dynamic between the two of us is, like, for all our similarities, we're a lot different in a lot of ways. Whereas, like, I like to play the background. Like, you know, I'm not really the vocal person. That's kind of like my role, where he performs on stages across the world and stuff like that. So he's a natural performer. He feels very comfortable in front of the camera, whereas I'm kind of gun shy a little bit. But when we're communicating with each other, it's like, you know, all bets is off.
Yeah, and even in public, in those regards, like we just bounce. Like, we feed off each other, and we can carry a conversation. We're not afraid to approach people and have conversations. But in the same token, we both I tend to play the background too for, like, in a lot of occasions. I mean, I am used to being on stage, but whatever, B.
Yeah.
Anyway.
2, maybe.
Anyways, yeah. So that's a little bit about us. If you have questions about us and you want to know specific things, again, email us, talk to us, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what questions you have, and we can answer them in episodes to come. You know what I mean? So that'll be pretty dope.
At the end of the day, guys, we ain't no different than y'all. Like, the conversations we're going to have, I guarantee you it will, at minimum, resonate, whether or not you can relate to it or not. But it'll be a conversation that when you hear it, the conversations we have when you hear it, you'll be like, damn, that makes sense, right? Or I never thought about it like that. And that's all, just trying to have some thought-provoking conversation. And that's it. Like I said, like we said in the first episode, you know, these are things that we've personally experienced, right? That I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to. And our episode today is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And you'll see, like, when we get into it. Actually, that's another thing. So the episode today, we're going to talk about some statistics. Like last episode, we talked about, you know, not having all the statistics right away. We wanted to start recording. And I also mentioned in the last episode that we are statistics, right? So we've experienced some of this stuff, regardless of what Google says or anything like that. But we're going to share some of those statistics with you. Then we're going to take it down to a micro level look, if you're listening to me and you are a Black American in this world today, I unequivocally know at some level, at some point, you've experienced some type of trauma just from being Black. Right, which could potentially lead to PTSD. So
how crazy is that, though? Yo? Like, just hearing that right now is just like, just because you're Black,
right,
you're guaranteed to experience some type of trauma.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of legs to this, right? Like, there's a lot of ways, like there's a lot of ways we could have went, but we just tried to keep it simple to And we're keeping it simple based on one statistic that we feel like it's important to talk about. And like I said, it's something that you may not even thought about, and we're just going to talk about it. And quite frankly, we didn't even really think about this until recently. So
until we had the discussion about
it,
like, yo, let's talk about that too.
Right.
But one thing, I was talking to a friend about the show, and she asked, what are 2 things you want to do different or grow from the previous show? And I said, I want to make sure we finish our thoughts, because there's a couple times myself, I began to say something and got so caught up and was looking for stats somewhere else, looking through my phone for the message Belle's mom had sent, and just didn't finish my thoughts. So we're trying to be more clear and concise in what we have to say. Secondly, I said I wanted to be more relatable, and not that we are not, but we had this thing where we wanted to be. We had this conversation. It was like, yo, we want to come off as the everyday regular person, and it was like, but we're not regular, in a sense of we knew at a very young age kind of what we wanted to do, where we wanted to go with our lives. And I remember it was like 14, 15, getting up in the morning at 5 o'clock, going to work out, because we knew we had to get scholarships to go to college. If we didn't get scholarships, we wasn't going. But those are the things that we did at a very young age. And it's like, whatever we've put our mind to, no bullshit, whatever we put our mind to, we've pretty much been successful. I mean, pat on my own back, but at 16, I'm writing poems. My football teammates is laughing at me. Now they pay to come watch me perform. Like, if I told you at 14 I wanted to be a professional poet, you'd have probably laughed at me, be like, get out of my face. But now they're coming to my shows. You know what I mean? This dude was like, yeah, I got to buy my mama a house. I remember going to his crib, and he had on his wall, on a board, had a couple cars, buy my mama a house, yada, yada, yada. G-Ma living good right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's a testament to the devotion we have to succeeding at whatever it is we desire.
Yeah, as much as we're regular, we're different, right? And I'm sure a lot of you can relate. So, without further ado, we appreciate you guys' attendance, you listening. We're going to jump into it. So,
PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
When most people think of PTSD, you immediately associate it with having come back from war, having served some time in the military, for the most part. But when it comes to Black people, African Americans, I mean, it starts from the most simple microaggression, like the lady clutching her purse when you walk around on the sidewalk, or the stereotypical elevator team when you walk in and you get the side eye, and people, you feel their bodies tense up. That happens to us all the time. I mean, we're not small men. We're both about 6'2", over 200 pounds. You know what I'm saying? So just the general nature of who we are can be intimidating to some people, and unfortunately, We see that all the time, and after a while, so many of those micro experiences add up, and they can be traumatic. Like you start to second guess yourself. Like, you know what? Let me smile before I walk into the elevator so I don't scare these people. You know what I'm saying? And it sucks sometimes.
And it also shapes you,
True.
right? Like it shapes you as an individual, who you become, and you don't realize it sometimes, right? So we're gonna read some statistics, guys, but the thing is, I could tell you all the statistics in the world, like I said, but I'm gonna break it down to where for some people, and again, like I said, I'm not speaking for all people. Like when we said in the first episode, we're speaking from our experiences.
So let me give you the clinical definition or the clinical description they gave as I was doing some research, and it says PTSD. The diagnosis conjures up images of hollow-eyed combat veterans or terrified rape victims. But new research indicates that racism can be just as devastating as gunfire or sexual assault. Like, how crazy is that? We've seen the movies, or we know people who have come from wars and are, they have an extreme level of PTSD and the nightmares they have and so on and so forth. When they equate simply dealing with being black is equivalent to coming from war. Like, how insane is that? That many people may not even realize of the shit that we go through on a daily basis.
Well, most people don't. And I think, another reason why I picked this topic because of the recent current events. It's like the reason why I was not huge on statistics, guys, because we don't got to go far to realize that, the stuff that we deal with isn't what everybody else deal with. Like, I was listening to or watching Michael Che from Saturday Night Live. He had a stand-up. He was like, we said Black Lives Matter. He was like, what's less than matter? Like, right. we just trying to matter, right? Like, and that's it, right? It's just it's one of those things. So we thought it was appropriate because of everything that's going on, all the civil unrest and obviously the injustice and marginalization and all of those things. And those are things that are in your face, right? Those are things that white America sees and maybe starts the conversation, right? God knows I've received a ton of calls and concern and, from a lot of my white friends, just, trying to educate themselves and get a better understanding of how I'm feeling, more importantly. So what I want to talk about today, though, outside of all the nonsense, right, that we're experiencing recently and what we're witnessing, I want to talk about where some of this trauma and anxiety can come from. And believe it or not, it can start as early as 8 years old, right? And then somebody may say,
in some cases even earlier, but go
yeah.
ahead.
And some people may say, well, how can an 8-year-old, form PTSD? And I don't know, Chief, where's the statistic about households or single-family households?
The bottom of the page. Well, you got it right, 25 right there.
So 25% of U.S. children under 18 live with one parent and no other adults. 62%
of that 25%
are African American families. All right. So another statistic that I didn't realize, guys, until recently, that black males have a 1 in 3 chance of going to jail or prison or some form of confinement. That's 33%. Right. So that makes sense when you look.
Wait. Does that make us statistics? I mean, just having gone, period, does that make us statistics? Part of the statistic?
Yeah, I've been to jail before.
I'm just saying, me too.
Yeah.
So is that like,
yeah,
I ain't do no hard time, but just being behind the bars, like that.
No, that counts, yeah. It's jail, prison, or like I said, some type of confinement.
That's
yeah.
fucked up.
So like I said, guys, we don't need to look up statistics, we statistics, right? And I ain't got no record or nothing like that, but
I'm expunged, B. I'm expunged, so you never know.
I didn't even get to expunge. I'm gonna make that another episode. Remind me, stop and frisk. I'm gonna talk about that.
He got stopped and frisked and held in incarceration for
I'm telling you,
for a weekend. Was it a weekend?
48 hours, B.
That's crazy.
48 hours, man. We'll talk about that though.
I remember that.
So anyway, with the 33% chance of a black male going to some form of incarceration, it makes sense why the single parent household statistic is so high. So when you say, okay, well, how can an 8-year-old create PTSD? So Chief and I, again, like I said, we're the same in a lot of ways and we're different in a lot of ways. So I was fortunate to grow up with both my parents for the most part, and I'll explain that in a second. And Chief, as I said last episode, met his dad like 2 weeks ago. So he grew up with his mom, you know. Who
Shout out to Dukes, yo.
Shout out to Peaches.
P.S. Mom's name is Peaches, like real nigga shit.
Yeah. Peaches. Introduce herself as Peaches. So anyway, so our statistic today, or excuse me, our post-traumatic stress disorder occurrence that we're going to discuss is that 8-year-old kid. So tell me if y'all can relate to this, or if you've heard of it, right? When a boy, and I'm talking about, again, the name of our show is All Black Men Need Therapy. When a little 8-year-old boy, 9-year-old boy, young child nonetheless, is in a single parent household, typically the mother, the conversation that is had more often than not is, you're the man of the house now.
You're the man of the house now.
So I've had that conversation before with my dad, and Chief's had that conversation before with his mom. So we want to just talk about what that does, right? And I know it's, from our parents' standpoint, when they had those conversations with us, I took it as empowerment, right? Like
100%.
Like giving you an opportunity to step up and everything like that. But what we're going to discuss today a little bit is how that can show up negatively in our life. So, Chief, you want to just talk about you and Peaches growing up, and I'll talk about how I had that conversation?
I remember my pop coming to, this is the legit, no bullshit, outside of when I was 31, but I remember my pop coming to my house when I had to be like 4 or 5. And this is the only memory I have of him. He came into the crib, him and my mom was talking. He picked me up and put me like over his head and then put me back on the ground. I don't remember seeing his face. I remember Dukes telling me that was my dad. I couldn't tell you what he looked like. Up until I was 31, I used to always say I could walk by this man every day and not know it was him. Until the day I met him. And then it was like, wow, like it was pretty bugged out. But that's the only recollection I have of my father being around. My mom didn't get married until I was 22-ish, maybe 23. I was in college, so I don't think I went to my mom's, but I think I came back afterwards. I was during football season or whatever. But growing up, it was me, her, and my brother Peanut. Again, my mom Peaches, my brother Peanut, and my other brother Duck. Like typical project household, right? So growing up with just them, like I was given that, you took on the responsibility initially being the elder brother. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna say elder because elder comes with maturity. You know what I'm saying? I was mature. So with being the oldest brother, you just take on the responsibility of being the quote unquote father figure in the home. I mean, Dukes worked second, third shift sometimes, so you had to be home. Like I don't know if people still do it to this day, but you probably do. But we got left home at 9 o'clock. Lock them doors. Don't let nobody in this damn house.
Yeah, latchkey kids.
Right. You know what I mean? Lock that door. Don't let nobody in the house. Anybody knock, I don't care who it is, you don't let them in. So I'm turning away aunts and uncles because mama said can't nobody come in the house.
I turned away my mom one time. That's a true story. My auntie Linda, we'll get into that some other time.
Tell the story.
No, so I was like 5. And I lived
in the house at 5?
You judging me?
No, I'm judging your mom.
I slap you. Anyway, I was young because I was still living in Bloomfield, and I think my aunt was supposed to be watching me, and she said I'll be back, and don't let nobody in the house, like at all. And I lived it was a 2-family. My grandparents owned the house, and we was on the first floor, and so I followed instructions, and my mom came to the door. And they was like, let me in. I was like, nah, not today.
Not today.
Like, that's not what I was told. Man, they told me don't let nobody in. Can't nobody come in. I'm not trying to get beat. But yeah, so that I can relate to that.
Sure.
Being left home. But so my experience was a little different because and this, a lot of you might not even know this. For those who know,
don't nobody know this. Ain't nobody. They don't even know you. You just introduce yourself.
I told you 7 people we know is listening at least, and they know me. So and you have to gotta edit that out. My phone ringing on live. So anyway, when I was young, my parents, shortly after I was born, my dad went to prison. So my dad was in prison. And that's another conversation. Maybe I can have him on one day. You know, I still don't know what he went to prison for. Like, I done heard a lot of stories, but I still don't know what he went to prison for.
His dad is by far the greatest character you could ever have on the show. By far. I'm talking about all the characters Martin played on the show combined is his dad.
Hilarious.
The dude is absolutely insane. Good dude though. But
so my dad. So I think the first 4 to 5 years of my
time out. I'm gonna let you finish that first 4 or 5. But this is another element we have to put into there though. We are fully grown men with families, and my man just admitted I still don't know what my father went to prison for.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But why? Did Pop never talk about that? You know what I'm saying? That's something Pop probably never spoke about that experience.
When he talks about going to jail, he calls it college, first of all.
That's what I mean by Pop being a character.
My daughter didn't know he didn't go to real college until she was 13 or something like that. It's crazy. Cause that's how he refers to it. He refers to it with the college. Maybe because of the amount of years he was there, maybe he got his master's. I don't know. Well, we know he definitely didn't get his master's. But
That's so funny.
But anyway, my father was in prison for like I said, the first 4 or 5 years of my life. I can't remember exactly what it was. And when he came home, my parents were back together. But then they would always, even to this day, they break up every 7 years, and then they split up for a period of time. So when I was young, he told me, he's like, I remember where I was at. I was living in Ledgecrest, and he's like, "You the man of the house."
That's the scale. 1 to 5 is level 2 projects.
Yeah,
5, you know what I'm saying?
5 being the worst.
But it's still the projects.
So he told me that, and I didn't really know what it meant. But I literally remember walking back to the living room, almost, I guess, and I didn't know at the time, but now I'm thinking back, almost chest out a little bit, kind of I got this, you know what I'm saying? But if you think about it, in reality, you're setting that kid up for failure, right? And I'll explain why. Because there's no way in hell an 8, 10, 11, 12-year-old kid even can be the man of the house, right? Let's think about that responsibility. As the man of my household now, right? And Chief as the man of your household, right? That's protect, provide, right? Let's just stop there. Those are the 2 cornerstones.
To protect and provide.
Absolutely. As an 8-year-old child, what do you do how do you get there, right? How do you get to that point? So, the reason why I said that is because what ends up happening is this kid now tries to overcompensate. Right.
That's the number of fights we get into as a little kid. I'm the man of the house. I got to represent that when I'm in the streets and the cats try to talk slick. And that's just part of the trauma that we go through. It's a facade you have to put on because you've been labeled the man of the house.
Right. And the thing is, I remember listening to this song by Noriega. The name of the song is Sometimes, and he talks about when he had that conversation with his dad, and the line is, it goes, "Poppy, you got to protect your moms, even if that means you got to strap up arms," right? Meaning, even if you got to get a gun at 10, 11, whatever age you are, you got to hold the family down, basically. So now, I didn't realize this wasn't normal, and this is the truth, until I got into corporate America about 10 years ago. And I'm listening to some of my peers' upbringing, and they're not worried about, protecting and providing for their mom and stuff like that. They out there riding bikes with their kids or with their friends and rollerblading and all those things. And again, my life wasn't bad, so please hear me clear. But what I'm talking about now is where this starts, right? Now, like we mentioned, Chief and I were fortunate, right? We made it out of our situations and we're doing relatively okay. So, but what about that 8-year-old kid that has to protect and provide, right?
When you reference the protect part, the quote from Noriega, I'm gonna throw another quote at you from Busta Rhymes in the I'm So Hood remix with Khaled and them, and it's the literal essence of what we do in order to be able to provide. And it says, y'all niggas know where I'm from, and I rep it to the fullest to the day that I'm done. So hood where we live. If a nigga sold drugs, any rich mama still proud of his son. But that's what.
Hold on for a second. you said if he's so rich, if he sold drugs and he rich, mom is still proud of his son.
Yes.
Right? Think about that for a second. Right? Think about the people, like, listen, man, like, can we have an honest conversation, black people? Like, we all got that cousin that get to it. Like, we all got that cousin that get to it, and or uncle that get to it, and I'll speak for myself. Like,
low-key, Dukes used to get to it. I ain't dry snitching Dukes, it's over, you did your time, but Dukes
statute of limitations,
Dukes used to get to it. Remember when the Jakes came in and kicked the door down and we had the little weed packets in the little small pocket of the pants? They came in throwing everything out the dresser drawers and never checked the little pockets.
Gotcha, bitch.
Word. Word, but go ahead.
No, we all got that. We all got that cousin or that uncle or that person. I mean, listen, man. Every black man on my father's side over 30 has a felony. Period.
Wow.
Every black man on my father's side over 30 has a felony. So you grow up looking at, okay, well, how can I provide? And the reason, like I mentioned in the last episode, being in corporate America, I want to go back and talk to these kids because we don't see those images, right? If you grow up in level 2 projects like I did, as Chief mentioned, you're going to see images of people making money that more often than not will not be the right way, right? So that pressure, again, you don't internalize it as pressure as at 10 years old. You just know what you were told. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have a dad that's there, right? Chief's dad was gone, out of the picture, never to be seen again until recently. My dad, I'm trying to be serious. My dad was always around, but he wasn't in the house. So he can't be there for that real-time feedback, right? You do something stupid, like he's not there to be like, nah, Bell, this is not how you do it. Or he used to call me Duke. But so where you go, right? Where do you go? You go to the elder statesman of your neighborhood.
Right, the cat with all the money.
Right.
The cat with the whips. You
right. They sending you to the store, giving you $1 or $2 here and there. And then, depending on who you are, they may take a liking to you. And then now you found an avenue, yep. Right? So now that's where the provide thing can come from. And again, guys, I'm speaking from my peripheral, right? Like what I seen growing up and what I wanted. Like, you know what's so crazy? And I'm going to finish this thought. But even as an adult, like when I used to see drug dealers when I was younger, I used to see the cars, the clothes, and stuff like that. As an adult, you know what's so crazy? What I thought, like I don't want to say the pinnacle of success, but like the outward success was being able to afford a pair of Prada shoes. Like, how crazy is that? $400 shoes, and I was a young adult, but I'm like, man, like I made it, basically, because I was able to afford a pair of Prada shoes because I used to see the drug dealers wearing them, and I could never afford them. So anyway, you find that as a means, right? Okay, here's an opportunity for me to make some money. Now, we all know how that story ends, right? We know how that story ends.
For most of us, it ends with an incarceration, with a stint, sometime locked behind bars. For most of us.
Right. And another thing that comes from that, if you ever notice in black men, we love our moms, man. Like, and I'm obviously biased, but I feel like we love our moms harder than any other race. And I don't know, well, I do know why that is, because we were taught at a young age that we have to protect them. Right?
For sure.
Like, we need to protect them. So they always hold a special place in our heart. So as a provider, you know, you can... I'm scrambled over here. So hold on.
We're going with it.
We can edit this, but...
As a provider, you talking about?
Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So as a provider, right, like here's the best case scenario. You're in a single parent household. You're coming up with your mom. She's teaching you all the right things. You escape the streets, right? You escape them, right? Chief and I was able to escape them, and we were able to go to college, right? So you graduate high school, you graduate college, or you get a trade, or you get a career, right? But what if you don't? Like, we could post statistics on that. That's a small population, right, in relation to all the 8 to 10-year-old kids out there. So now you got to, like I said, now you are at a crossroad. I don't have a trade, right? I don't have a career. Here's what I do know because I've been witnessing it.
Here's what I know, the streets.
Right, since I was younger.
I remember being brought up, one of my mom's boyfriends, I'm not going to name drop, but he was out in the streets getting it, and he would take me with him. Yo,
It's rolling.
so y'all remember when we told y'all about humble beginnings? you see we in 2 different outfits right now, right?
I got a whole haircut.
Because this is 2. You had a whole haircut in the other one, though.
The second one?
Yeah.
No, I didn't. The second one had the black hoodie on. I had the whole
Right,
the grizzly.
did.
Yeah.
You see, shout out to everybody who's getting haircuts now, the Corona crew back in the barbershop. But humble beginnings, man. We had some technical difficulties. So we was like, the last time we was on the other side of the room. We even in a new spot in the basement right now. You know what I'm saying? We got the whole, listen, man.
We about to get started.
We gonna get back to it, but we had to, figure it out. So we back now. So we was talking about the homie in the hood give you a couple dollars, and it made me think of my mom's old boyfriend used to take me with him when he would go slanging in the hood, and like I had remember the little picture with the Rock had the pouch, the fanny pack?
Yeah, those are back in, by the way.
True. If I see you with a man purse,
I'm never gonna have one of them.
have problems. Anyways,
They call it a merce.
the Merce. If I see you with the Merce, we gonna have problems. Anyways, we he used to make a sale and then give me the bread, and I would put it in the little joint, and he would be like, listen, if something go down, the cops come around, you see something suspicious, run home, bring the bread to your mom's. You know what I'm saying? At the time, I don't really think I knew what I was doing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Of course you did, right?
Because he would ask me like, stay right here, I'll be right back. And he would go do his thing and then come back. And I think I didn't know, but either way, I felt good because I had knots on knots on knots.
And you had a job.
Word. And he broke me off a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Gave me like a little $20 or whatever. Stealing car stereos. Give him
Boys out there
$20.
stealing $100 car stereos. Give them $20.
Maybe. Movie. Y'all don't know what movie that is. Anyways, so yeah, man, that's the real, like, that was me being the provider almost in that sense, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah, at minimum, you felt like you was pulling your weight. And thinking about all these things, like you guys, and listening to us, you may be saying, well, like Bell Chief, like that's all great anecdotal information, but like how does this show up, like as PTSD, as you mentioned? So I'm gonna give you like the surface level answer, right? One, growing up too fast, right?
way too fast.
You're growing up too fast. Your childhood's gone, and as a result, what happens is you can find yourself in situations that you shouldn't be in, or wouldn't have to be in if not put in that situation, right? Because again, if you're leading with protect and provide, you're going to do that at all costs to a certain degree, right? The second part is resentment, right? Like if you are, I don't want to say astute, but if you just are knowledgeable enough at that age, well, forget if you're knowledgeable enough. One thing that you will be able to see very clearly is that your dad isn't there, right? Like that is one glaring difference between you and all your peers, right? So that resentment can show up in a lot of different ways. It can show up with your peers, like beefing because, you got a dad, I don't got a dad. It can show up in like your resentment towards men, right? And specifically, if you want to take it another level, it can show up in your resentment towards black men, right? Or men of authority, right? So then now you're growing up.
Look at it.
Yeah, when you're growing up, like, man, damn that. Like, ain't nobody about to tell me what to do. My dad never told me what to do, right?
But even more so, like the whole, how it's just customary in the culture, like we talked about in the first episode, like dudes stare at you too long.
Right.
It becomes a pride thing. Like, I'm the man in my house. You ain't about to chump me. I'm the man at my place. You know what I'm saying? So that
and the crazy thing is, even deeper than that, it's like the thing is you got to understand. Like let's just say, right, for argument's sake, you took the route of a street career, right? You took the route of a street career. This is your means. It was taught. It was said to you and ingrained in you that you have to provide. This is the way you provide. So now it's like people talk about. And Jay-Z said, I used to beef over building blocks. Now I buy blocks with buildings or something like that. But beefing over building blocks is like, no, this is my area. This is how I'm protecting or how I'm providing and protecting my family. This is deeper than you just coming on my territory, right? It's deeper than that. Like, and that's what doesn't, right? Exactly. Yeah. No, exactly. And that's what doesn't meet the eye. But So those, like I said, those are some of the surface level things. But I'll take it a step deeper personally. And this actually just came to me. I didn't even have this typed up in terms of my notes. Like, for me personally, how this showed up in terms of like, okay, where's the PTSD? The PTSD for me showed up where it was like, I didn't consider myself successful because it didn't look like the neighborhood drug dealers, right? And the crazy thing is, like, I have a lot of tendencies now that stem from that. Like, again, you don't realize these things. And like we said in our first episode, we're unpacking this stuff here in front of you guys. And this is stuff that's just coming to my mind right now. But it's like, I have an absorbent amount of sneakers for no reason.
Me too.
Right?
We definitely do, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, bro, like I wear hard bottoms 5 days a week. Like minimum 50 hours a week. When the hell am I have time to wear over 100 pair of sneakers that I have? Right? The other thing I did is I bought a lot of jewelry. Right? And now I still have that jewelry, but that was at a time in my life. I don't wear it now, but that was a time in my life where that was a status symbol. Right? And you're talking to a dude that works in corporate America. Like, I'm working in corporate America, and I'm feeling like this is my trophy, right? Like I'll tell you a true story. I'm working in corporate America. This was like probably 10 years ago. I just started, maybe 9, and I'm not making a lot of money at that time. I'm brand new, but my first like ring of success in my mind is not when I hit like a milestone in my career. In my mind, and I'm being honest, this is how it showed up for me. My mind, my first success rung was buying a pair of Pradas.
I remember you telling me that story.
Like, how crazy is that? Right? Like, I'm so far from the hood in terms of my career path, and definitely the people that I'm now associated with, at least on a work level, but I'm still trying to hold on and eclipse like what I saw as success.
Right.
And how that could have negatively showed up in my life is I could have missed the opportunity to find real success because I'm still trying to find what I deemed as success.
Street level success.
Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. And the thing is, that's the thing. It's like, we can't differentiate at that age. Like, okay, that's street level success. No, that is success.
It's success.
That is success.
Yeah,
like that. Success. There's no differentiator because, as we mentioned, Dad's wasn't around. You know what I'm saying? And mine was in prison. And my people's friends or my people's dads weren't around either. So it's like we didn't have that dad, or I'm speaking for myself. I didn't have that even a blue collar dad to come home, with his lunch pail and like talk about his dad. I didn't have that. So I had to paint that picture of success. So that was the only image of success that I had, right? Which is why I said I want to go back to the school systems and talk to these kids about corporate America. Right. Like, there's other people that are successful. They just weren't in my purview.
Because as a youngin', we get so used to, I don't want to say appealing to the homies, but you want to represent yourself in a light where you're deemed, quote unquote, successful.
Yeah.
So when they see you with the Pradas, when they see you with the Jordans and so on and so forth, they give you that level of status, I guess.
Yeah, because we put on. That's the thing, and that goes back to the slave days. I don't got time. Educate yourselves. I don't got time to go into that, but
it's because of slavery.
Yeah, like it all goes back, right? Like,
shout out to Kenya Burris. Like
Sunday's best. Like, that comes from like the Sabbath Sundays. Like, we weren't allowed to do a lot of stuff, so when we'll sneak out and hold a service, right? We put on the best things that we had, whatever that was, and that's what made us feel good. So as a people, we like to put on because
we still kind of like low key like that now, like except it's in a different form.
No.
We're
always gonna
suits now.
We always gonna be like that. That's what I'm saying. We're always gonna be like that. But the difference is, for me, again, I'm speaking for myself. The difference is for me was like, and the crazy shit is when I'm buying all this stuff and I'm doing all those things. The crazy thing is, and this is why we all need therapy. The crazy thing, I'm telling you, right? I'm buying all these sneakers, and at one point, for those who know me, I was in the classic cars. I had a bunch of old school cars.
Keep trying to tell this cat, don't nobody know him.
Yeah, nah, that's true. But 7 of y'all, like I said, who listening, y'all know me. Y'all know about them old schools. Anyway, I was buying all these things, but the crazy thing is, I didn't even like driving them because I don't like the attention. Cause that's a whole nother layer. And we can keep going, but that's a whole nother layer, right? I never wanted to be looked at as like the flashy one. So I'll tell you a true story. Like I bought a new truck, which was a foreign truck, and I had it for 2 years, and in 2 years I put 7,000 miles on that truck because I just didn't want to drive it. I always wanted one, so I bought it, but I let my boy drive it all the time. They thought it was his because I just didn't feel comfortable driving it because I'm like, I don't want all that attention. Because if you grow up in the hood, you understand that attention.
Now mind you, he had the cherry red old school on 26s or something crazy with the booming system. With the booming system.
But it's crazy, man, because like for me, and again, I'm speaking for myself, guys, like that was the thing. It's like I had all these things, but then it's like as soon as I eclipsed it, it was like success to me. But then it's like as soon as I eclipsed it, it's like, oh shit, where the Jack boys at? You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be careful of where you at and all this other stuff. So that's where the PTSD comes in. It's like it shows up in a lot of ways, man, and it's different for everybody. But for me, it showed up, and just to break it down, it showed up in I didn't resent my father because, like I said, my father was always around, so it didn't show up there. But it definitely showed up in me growing up too fast, right? And we'll talk about this in our next episode of fatherhood, you know. But I was a father at 15, you know what I'm saying, and we'll get into that more later. But like. My peers at work weren't fathers in their teens. Shit, they weren't even fathers in their early 20s for the most part. So that's what I'm saying. That put me, I'm protecting and providing is putting me around older people that are doing older things that I'm just now doing because I'm in the environment. So that's kind of how it showed up for me. And like I said, even as an adult, when I got into corporate America, it showed up in the sense where I was still trying to prove myself to the hood that like I made it. Right? Because in my mind, in my immature mind at that time, that suit, that tie didn't hold as much credibility or weight as those products. Right. Which is crazy. Like, that is crazy. If I went back to the hood and told people that story, they would be like, man, you sound stupid. Like, we'd love to be in your shoes. Right? Like, that's the crazy thing. But it's, again, it was a learned behavior. It was all ingrained in me when I was coming up. That was the only image I had. So that's how that you the man of the house can show up in your adult life. And at least that's how it showed up for me.
So for me, it was a little, I mean, in similar to some of the things you're saying, it was more the parental figure for me. Like, to this day, I have yet to call a man dad. To this day.
Just crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Like, to this day, even my mother's husband is referred to as my mother's husband, not my stepdad. You know what I'm saying? And that's just, and he's a great dude, treats my mom very well. But
shout out to Eves.
And that in itself right there has me sitting back, like, looking at observing different relationships. Like, I was filming something the other day, and dude was like, I think Alvin is like, I don't know, he might be mid-50s, and his pop was there. His pop's like late 70s, early 80s. And he was calling him daddy. And it was like monumental for me. Like, it was just so dope to sit there. Like, these two super grown men. And they have that awesome, great bond. And I can't say, I was a little envious. But in a good way though. Like, I was happy to see it, but in a sense, I'm sitting back.
Made you reflect.
Right, I'm sitting back going, damn, like, you know what I mean? Like, I wrote a poem recently, and it starts off, it's a who am I poem. And it's like, who am I? With one brother in corrections and the other in a casket, I am my mama's only child. I am the only child my father didn't raise. You know what I'm saying? Like, my father was there for my brother, for my sister. You know what I'm saying? So what was it about me?
I've been meaning to ask you this for a while. You want to jump him?
Nah.
It might be time, man.
I still live in the honor thy mother and thy father thing, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, he'll always be my dad. I just, we just don't have a relationship. And it is what it is. And so that's why I put my foot deep into my children, so that, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, we have that bond and that connection. So the traumatic part about it, or where it shows up, where the PTSD shows up for me, is the lack of attachment and the inner resentment I have for, I guess, people who have their dads around. Like, I'm low key envious of the relationship you got with your dad. Like, y'all get to laughing and cooling and having a beer, and it's just dope to see. But to be a grown man, like, I'm never gonna be like, I needed my dad, and if he came back now, we still wouldn't have that. That dynamic still wouldn't be there for me, because it's like, yo, I'm super grown, B. Like, there's nothing you could do for me.
But would you allow him to come back?
I think after the conversation we had, what would be the point?
What if you had to change your heart?
You can't have a change of heart. You know what I mean?
He
said the reason I wasn't around is because I told your mother not to have you.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is he can understand now that what he said and what he did, more importantly, was wrong, and he wants to make amends.
I mean, again, I'll give him that respect to make amends, but I just don't see us establishing a relationship.
But would you be open to it?
I guess I don't know because I honestly don't know. Like, why it would have to take something like this, him hearing this, going, damn, I should reach out to my
You
son.
want to invite him on the show?
Nah, we're not doing that. That would be crazy.
That'd be crazy. have him and my dad on the show.
OG probably slap me.
I could definitely see my father slapping your dad.
And
then we gonna jump him.
Yeah, then we gonna jump him for real. Wow. Yeah. Nah. So I don't know. Those are some good. So it's a valid question. I really
I'm just curious. It's like it's hard for us, to fathom how a father could have that. One, say that to begin with, and then two, double down and tell you to your face.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like that takes some balls, and so I can see why he's like, we don't have anything to talk about. I get it. 100% get it. But yeah, guys, like that's PTSD, and we could have went so many different ways with this. Obviously, guys, there's a crisis going on in the world with systemic racism, injustice, the marginalization of black people. And to be 1,000,000% vulnerable and honest, I didn't even want to touch that. And not because it's unpopular, not because it's everybody's touched it. It's because I'm just not ready to have that conversation, if I'm being honest. Like the current state, like the George Floyd's,
yeah, but I think that's definitely something that people want to hear about. I mean, think about the PTSD that particular event right now has given the world.
No. I know, and that's what I'm saying. It's like we can have PTSD part 2. You know what I'm saying?
That has to happen.
But what we wanted to do was just give you the origin for some of us, right? The stories we told today. That's not everybody's story. But I know a lot of people can relate. Just like we can all relate to being stopped for no reason by a cop, right? Which is another level of PTSD that we might have to have part 2.
That shit is just bugged out.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, you see how much emotion that evokes just broaching the topic slightly. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just like, man, I'm not episode 2. I'm not ready to have that conversation with y'all, but we'll get there. I figured we'll start here and give you some origin for some people, like I said, and some framework, at least for myself. Like I said, again, guys, or people, we want everybody to benefit from this, and this is therapy for Chief and I. And as we said, we hope it can, at minimum, spark conversations internally with some of our listeners.
Right.
Speaking of therapy, I'm going to see my new therapist tomorrow.
Word?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be right here seeing her via Skype or whatever.
A Zoom meeting with the therapist.
Yeah.
Hey, let me know how that goes, because I'm not going.
Nah, it's my
You realize I've talked to you pretty much every day for like a while now. Like, I don't even like you like that, and like, stop calling me.
Why you think I'm going to a therapist? Stupid, man. It's cause and effects. Cause and effect.
Word. So it's been a bit of vulnerability today. I think my dude opened up a little bit to y'all and kind of gave you a little deeper insight into his perspective, because he's never been one to really tap into the vulnerability publicly. You know what I'm saying? So for this is a stretch for the both of us. I'm a little more comfortable than he is, but
can you cry on demand?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
and if I think about what happened.
Yeah, true.
That's another one.
But that's another. But like if you're acting though, like if you're in a role, would you tap into that? Like, would you use that?
That's what I would have to tap in. So here's some more for you guys. 2009, my younger brother was murdered, and I'm about
to say, well, let's just talk about that another episode.
But again, PTSD. Like, think about that. Like, I've always been very reluctant to go out with the guys. Like, fellas will go out all the time, and I'll go out, twice a summer?
Yeah.
And they go out,
best.
At best. And my brother was murdered going out. So, like, PTSD. Like, that shit still weighs on me.
And that's what we saying. It's, again, this has so many legs. And, once you guys listen to this, if you want us to go, if you hit us up in the comments, you hit us up on the email, you say you want us to go deeper, it can get deep and it can go a lot of different ways. And if that will help some of you, then we can go there.
I think we gotta get Butter on here because he has a tendency to kind of push us, to get us to push the envelope.
And that's fine. We can do that. I don't want to do that tomorrow.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Like, because you're right. Like, Butter is very effective and he's really good at what he does. So I want to get more comfortable with the audience and with these conversations before we.
I'm excited to see what people have to say, what their thoughts are. Emails allblackmenneedtherapy@gmail. I mean, we're excited to see what you got to say so we can take that feedback and apply it to future episodes and kind of continue to grow, man. I mean, this is gonna be dope.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And just to put a button on this episode, the last two comments I'll make is we have to understand, as unpopular as this statement is, just to recap the episode for the most part, the man of the house conversation was very irresponsible of our parents, right? And I know they were doing the best they could, and they did. Like I said, my life was fine. My life is great. No complaints.
So that's something to consider when and if, for the female listeners or even the male listeners, like abandoning your children or females telling your children they're the man of the house. It's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
They may not realize.
And I'm not saying you can't have a similar type conversation, but just understand how one could internalize it. I'm not going to say how everybody would internalize it, but how one could internalize it, right? You got two perspectives of people who've had that conversation. And hey,
for the most part, we've turned out okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it has its benefits.
Yeah,
the same token.
And that's the other thing. It's like, you got to think about us as a people. Like, we're going to turn lemonade or lemons into lemonade. Right. Like, that's just who we are. Like, we're very resilient. So we'll take something that's supposed to be traumatic and negative and, whatever, and use it as a springboard, and we'll take that fuel to push us to the next level because of the internal conversation we'll have, right? But that doesn't mean that the effects aren't present. We're just not addressing them, right? Because we keep pushing ourselves. And now what we're doing is we're avoiding the trauma by setting another goal and hitting another rung on the ladder. So,
and avoidance is a surefire way of not having those issues resolved.
Right. So last thought, guys, how is this conversation showing up in your life personally and in your relationships, right? Like I said, like Chief said, for the moms out there, for the dads out there, who've had that conversation with your child or been, or if your parents have had that with you, just kind of think about what that's doing to your current relationships in any form, and then, address it as you see fit. But again, just some thought-provoking conversation that we thought we would share with you all as we unpack our shit.
Continue to unpack our shit.
With all of you,
So, with that being said, that has been episode 2 of All Black Men Need Therapy. We want to hear what you got to say. Hit us up at Gmail. allblackmenneedtherapy@gmail.com. Words of the day is hug a black man today and tomorrow. We out.
Peace.